And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I'm Michael DeLon. Today I am talking with Sherwood Greer. Sherwood, thank you, sir, for spending some time with me today on my podcast.
Glad to be here, Michael.
Well, it's going to be a fun conversation because Sherwood does something that's really, really important to everybody listening. And I can't say that to about all of my guests, but for Sherwood, I know I can because he is a financial planner who helps us get, I love this, get to retirement, but also get through retirement with a retirement income toolkit process that he's going to share with us and things. But it's so important what you do because retirement's coming very quickly for many of us, and we need to make sure we've got our ducks in a row. So I want to dive into all of that today, Sherwood. But as we get there, tell me, how in the world did you get doing what you're doing today?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you, as far as the retirement income toolkit concept, that came really from my own journey as I got closer towards retirement. And I started thinking about what do I need to do? But backing up, really, most of us, we take some turns in our lives. We have some good experiences, maybe a boss that we liked or didn't like, or a situation. And what's interesting for me along my journey is I had two or three of these twists and turns. One of them was early in my career. I was a banker. I was working for a big bank, and then all of a sudden, I said, "Hey, I'm not moving along fast enough like a lot of us." I went to work for a savings bank. Well, I didn't realize that what I was really stepping into was a savings and loan. Well, 1987, the world's wonderful. And then all of a sudden in 1988, all heck breaks loose. We have the S&L crisis. And really over the next 3 or 4 years, that was kind of my first big turn where I started really thinking about what was I going to do? Because I saw this sort of conversion where you had all these people in the savings and loan industry probably trying to get into the banking industry. I wasn't really sure that's where I wanted to stay. And I met a gentleman that really got me talked into the idea of becoming a financial planner. So I started working on my CFP designation, and this was back in the olden days when it was book studies.
Right.
So you're into books, and so when you didn't have online courses and all that kind of stuff. So I was working on my CFP. I got married, changed jobs, and in all of that, it got me thinking about financial planning. And then basically, took another turn when we had the Great Recession. And so I actually had gone to work back for a bank, but now as a financial planner working inside an institution. And so they went through those challenges that happened in the crisis, and that gave me an opportunity about 11 years ago, me and my partner, to separate and go independent. And then the third sort of turn was when COVID happened. And when COVID happened, like a lot of firms, we went through some changes. We had a partner who was really big into 401ks, and he decided he wanted to move in a different direction. And it worked out well for him. And it actually worked out well for us because all in that time, I was kind of going through my own, what does it mean to really retire? And
Mhm.
and so in that period, I really started to do some research, and I got an RICP designation, which really changed my career. It really got me re-energized and really thinking about what we call the distribution side of things. So, we're taught to, save and accumulate. I say it's like going up that mountain, but nobody ever talks about, hey, how do you get back down the mountain? And so the fancy word is distribution planning. And so for me, I really started learning because I saw some of my clients that seemed to do better than I thought. And as I dug into what was going on, I found out, what, making a good Social Security claim and understanding the taxation of my money, could make a significant difference. And
Yeah.
so I've really enjoyed the last few years as I've gotten deeper and deeper into that planning side. And obviously, my generation of late baby boomers, early Xers, we're coming all into this period with, I call a lot of myths and basically stories that don't necessarily work as well today. Things like, hey, take your age, and whatever that is, that's the percentage you should have in bonds. And what I'm finding is for a lot of people, that ain't working out so well.
Yeah.
So for me, this has been a really fun journey. I've got a great team. We really enjoy what we're doing. And it's interesting. I can do more on the planning side and I can demonstrate, here's decisions that you make and how it can save you money. And what's interesting is I don't care how much money you make. When we start talking about saving taxes, everybody gets a twinkle in their eye.
Yeah.
Nobody tells me, Sherwood, I'm not paying enough taxes.
That's right.
So for me, it's kind of fun as I work through the process of helping them keep more of their money. And in reality, that's part of the game in retirement is making that money stretch.
Amen. Keep more of your money. Well, you just open up a lot of doors that I want to run through. Okay. And you mentioned I think the CFP or the C8,
Right.
one of those, which a lot of people understand. You mentioned also the RICP, which not many people really understand. Just give us a snapshot of that, and then I want to go somewhere else. But what is this RICP?
Right. So the retirement income certified professional designation is really built around people understanding what I call the distribution side. That's the how do I get my money out? Right? So
Yeah,
we save and save and save for 25, 35 years, whatever. And all of a sudden, here we are, we're retiring. And I'll tell you, for most people, it's kind of scary when I step out and I don't have that paycheck coming in.
yeah,
So the RICP is really about you learning things like the Social Security claim, things like, well, what's qualified dividends and why does a qualified dividend or capital gain matter? Really understanding things like your human capital, the fact that even after you retire, you can work. And so it's really a
yeah,
program built around distribution planning, which is the
yeah.
fancy way of saying, how do I get my money out?
How do I get my money out? Because you're right. We work and labor for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever it is, to build this big nest egg. Because that's the goal.
Right.
Well, I need a nest egg, but I need to be able to get the eggs out of that nest, right? And and I need that income because we don't think about when we leave that job, the paycheck stops. And that's where you come in to help people create this income stream. And that hit me a few years ago when I was talking with or writing a book for a financial advisor or something to go, the real issue in retirement that really relieves a lot of stress is to know I've got enough income to cover everything. Is that what you find?
Absolutely. You can make more mistakes when you're young, right? I made my $1,000 mistake when I was young and I said, hey, I need a Cadillac. For some reason, I don't know why. I'm 20 something years old. So I can't afford a fancy Cadillac, but I bought one for $1,600 from this used car guy in Charlotte, North Carolina. And sure enough, about 6 months later, I'm like, that was the dumbest thing I ever did. So I go back to the car dealer and I say, hey, buy this back from me, thinking I'll get $1,600 back.
Yeah, right.
He goes, I'll give you $600. So I go, you know what? That $1,000 mistake was probably one of the best mistakes I made when I was young
Yes.
because it stuck with me later on. But when I'm 65, I can't make too many mistakes. And
Right.
so that's why, to me, this side of the mountain, when I get there, this is when really a whole different set of challenges begin, and really getting them right matters.
Yeah. That's so good. The other things that you mentioned early on when you were unpacking all of this was Social Security and taxation, taxes. And I've written enough books for financial advisors, and one of them told me, he's like, Michael, did you know there are 382 different ways to take Social Security or apply for it? And I'm like, what? It is a nightmare, a rat maze. And having somebody like you who understands it and when to take it and how that impacts everything, but then the taxes on everything, they will eat you alive if you do it wrong, right? So we really have to look at those when we think about retirement.
Absolutely. People, I call Social Security the Rodney Dangerfield of retirement income, right? It gets no respect. But the reality is, it can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. Michael, if I put a big pile of cash in front of you, I think I would get your attention, right?
Yeah,
But most people don't realize that's your Social Security claim for you and your spouse, let's say, over your lifetime. If you start thinking of it as, wow, hey, this is a big pile of cash, then people would start taking the claiming decision more seriously and realizing claiming too early, which is still what is happening for the vast majority of retirees, it's costing them when they live longer. And we're not talking about you got to live to 100. We're just
No.
saying if one of the two spouses lives into their 80s, if both claimed, for example, at 62, that was probably a big mistake.
Yes. Yeah. And when you, for people like me, I don't really understand it, all those, but you've been through the schooling, you get the numbers. Somebody told me it's like every year you wait, it goes up 6% or 8% or something. And you're like, well, okay, whatever. But you start looking at the numbers. If you can wait and you go, wow, okay, what's that going to do? Oh, great. I get taxed on it. Well, maybe, maybe not. There are so many moving pieces and parts when we get to that distribution phase, as you talked about it, coming down the mountain. Um, and it takes a different type of financial advisor. Let me say, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but a lot of financial advisors are on that front end going, save, 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 build for retirement, but they've not been through the RICP. They don't understand the other side of, there are different rules in a sense, a different game that you have to play to distribute this over the next 30, 40 years. Is that fair?
Absolutely. And I think the other thing is, you have to take a longer term perspective. Like I'm thinking with my clients, let's say I meet somebody at 60 years of age, I'm thinking 20, 25 years. I'm thinking about, hey, what's going to happen between now and when you turn 65 and start Medicare? How do you understand the effect of what's called IRMA, which is this income related monthly adjustment amount, which is this big mouthful, but it means, hey, how is your Medicare taxed? Because what people don't realize is, the government's always looking for ways to raise revenue. And if you're not careful, you can step into, paying more than if you have good planning. And so
Mm.
what we want to do is really help people think about, hey, between now, let's say 67, which may be your full retirement age, 73 now, which is exciting. We've been moving back the required minimum distribution age. And for a lot of us, it'll now be age 75. So now when I work with somebody at 65, we might be able to do 10 years of planning before they hit that age where they might be able to do Roth conversions or other really good things to minimize their long-term taxation, because it's really about saving money. I say it's not about going up and down every year, right? You save money this year, then you pay a lot next year, then you save it. And that's a big rough wheel to be on. But if we can create a more consistent income, especially in retirement,
Yes.
when now you don't have that paycheck coming in, it makes a big difference.
Well, it does, and it relieves stress, and I think that's one thing that people don't really get. During the working years, I mean, yeah, we all stress around money, but the money's going to be there most of the time. In retirement, it's a different story if you haven't planned well. But when you put those pieces in place and you're like, okay, you've got, I had a widow of friend of mine, and her husband died suddenly of a heart attack. This was 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. They had done no planning.
Mhm.
So I jumped in and we helped them out. And she looked at me. She was a homeschooling mom for like 20 some odd years. She says, Michael, I don't want to go be the Walmart greeter. And she didn't want to go back to work. And so we worked everything out. And praise God, he had a big old, retirement account from his job. We got her set up where she got retirement income for life, right? Now she's not living high on the hog, but she never has to worry about working or paying bills. And she goes, thank you. And now she can enjoy her kids or grandkids and just enjoy the same lifestyle she's always had without stress. And that's really the value that I see you bring to the table in helping people plan for retirement income, and then building from there. That once you got that covered, oh, let's go have some fun and do some other cool things. Is that how you do things?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're exactly right. The stress in people's lives, we're all under stress all the time.
Yeah.
And so we can't take it all away, but we can manage it better. And part of that is by creating knowability. I don't know if that's a real word, but it
Okay.
sounds good to me, right? Just trying to take the unknown and make it more knowable. And
There
that
you go.
that gives people comfort.
Yes.
And so absolutely, and that's why I say I've gotten more satisfaction out of the distribution side of
Oh
planning
yeah.
for people than the accumulation side. The investment side, a lot of times people say it feels, like it's all a game and all of that. But when you get into the distribution side and you show somebody, hey, by giving, you give to charity already, and by understanding how to use your required distribution to give to charity, the church, or who you really care about,
Yeah,
and you save money on that, people love that.
absolutely.
And just helping them, the reality is you don't have to be a millionaire and billionaire to use the tax code properly and in your
Right.
favor. You just have to get some help in understanding it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the tax codes, well, it's tied to Social Security. They're both like rat mazes to me. It's like, how in the world do you ever figure this out? And the reality is, you don't. You talk with somebody like Sherwood who's been there, who understands, who has resources to bring to bear. And somebody told me years ago, and this plays right into what you do and all that you've been talking about, is their phrase was, it matters. What's important is not how much you save, but how much you keep. How much
Right.
comes to you? And I want you to address this, because I think a lot of people don't get this. And tell me if I'm wrong, but for most people, not only have they not created an income plan or retirement plan, they don't have a properly established will, estate plan, and things. And when that happens, their number one beneficiary many times can be the government, because he's standing there waiting for his money from a traditional IRA or something, because they haven't thought through conversions and things. Do you find that with people? Do you help them navigate that, or am I all wet and people have already taken care of that?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, the good news is that, just simply naming beneficiaries
Hmm.
in most accounts at least takes the worst thing, and that is dying what's called intestate without a will.
Right.
That is something nobody wants. And we've seen these situations, that happen that really become a struggle. Anytime you get the courts involved in settling things, that is not going to be fun.
Right.
So absolutely, a lot of what we want to do is help people make sure who you love, who you care about. In the end, we don't want one relative, your Uncle Sam, to be the one that gets more of the money. So we want Uncle Bob or Bill or whoever you love instead. And
Yeah.
so that is just simply, proper planning.
Yeah. And so many times, and the word, even the word planning, dude, I hear that, I'm going, because every time I talk to you guys, you're like, well, bring me your last 7 years. I'm like, I don't want to do that. But what I have found actually is, after that first conversation, most of the time you've got things streamlined. You're like, yeah, no, here's how you do it. And it takes us, my wife, my wife does all this stuff for me, but it takes us about 40 minutes to pull everything together and then give it to you. And then you got all the stuff to do all your things and go, okay, here's where we are. Here's where you are today. Where do you want to be? And then you just start dialoguing and things. And I think that's what I love about that distribution side, is it's not a formula. It's not like you're bringing off the shelf plan A and you got to fit into plan A. It's, here's what you got. Where do you want to go, and how do we help you get there? Is that kind of how you work?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're bringing up a great point. I say most of us have similar kind of concerns or similar situations, but every person's unique. The thing that I love about my job is we may ask, 100 people the same kind of questions that you work
Hmm.
through. But what's always interesting is one person goes this way, one person goes this way. And that's the part that's most enjoyable to me. It's actually the fact that each person has a unique journey.
Yeah.
And so when we sit down and we just do an assessment, and that's something we do at no cost, just kind of help them understand things. The goal is really to make sure people even understand what's possible, because a lot of the things we're being told, and I won't say that it's like intentional, but again, a lot of these myths and legends, they're not working out so well for people. And because you're just living your life,
Yeah.
you're a barber, whatever your career is, right? You're doing your thing, you're trying to take care of your family. And so this stuff feels like Greek. What we want to do is actually speak English,
Yes.
and not legalese, but actually English that you can understand so that you can start to make decisions based on your goals and objectives. And in the end, that's if somebody doesn't really buy in, it won't work. You know,
Yeah.
my job is not to get anybody to do anything that they don't want to do. It's really to serve as a guide. And
Yeah.
that really is helping people make their own decisions with good information.
Yeah. And that's so critical, because we have to be informed. And I think one of the things that stops people from taking that next step is procrastination. And it scares us because retirement planning and all this stuff, it's a big black hole to us. And we don't know what's there. But let me tell you what's there is Sherwood and his team. That's who's there. Who to guide you. I love that word, guide, because I need to understand at some level what in the world is all this stuff, and how do I structure it, and okay, am I going to be okay? Are my kids going to be okay? Is this what's going to happen? And educating me through that process to go, okay, I got a handle on it at some level, because that's when I'm a great client as well. But that's when a lot of my stress goes down. Is that
Right.
fair?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, we've talked about a lot of things, because I think the cool thing about this topic is it hits everybody. And I don't care if you're a starting entrepreneur, and I don't care if you're 40 or 35 or 75. You need what Sherwood has to offer. You need a conversation with him, because it's never too early to start planning, that's for sure. But it's rarely too late, is what I found as well. Right?
Absolutely. That's a great point. A lot of people, I say it's like if you've been a smoker all your life, there may be damage that's happened because of the smoking, but in almost in every case, if somebody stops, you know, our lungs have the capacity to heal. So
Right.
you're exactly right, Michael. Anybody, no matter where you are, you can start making little decisions that add up.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing is, again, you don't have to be a millionaire or billionaire. A lot of the opportunities in the tax code, it's all through the code.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think, oh, well, if I make this, then that's all these special deals. No. Section 199A, which is a real estate 20% deduction for qualifying real estate, that anybody can take advantage of. You know, capital gains and qualified dividends, you know, those go all the way through the code. So the beautiful thing is, you know, it's really about people understanding what are the options and then
Yeah.
what's right for them, because it is different for each person.
It is, and it's funny because the picture came to me years ago when I was a kid. My dad, would take us out to dinner every once in a while, and he took us to this one place that had a smorgasbord. I don't know if you remember those or not.
Oh, yeah.
Which, I mean, the food would just come by, and there were options. If I didn't want green beans, I could have kale, or I could have, and that's really the beautiful thing about Sherwood, and what you guys do is you have this smorgasbord of options that not everybody's going to take everything, and that's okay. But let me see what I can serve you, how I can guide you to take the right pieces and parts to fit you, your lifestyle, your dreams, your aspirations, based on where you are, what you got to work with. How do we get you there in a way that's going to make you fulfilled, and pass that legacy on to the next generation if you can? Fair?
Yeah, that's absolutely. I love options. I agree with you. I think people respond. I say, even when you have a tough option, you know, most people, if they're told there is no option, they're not going to be as happy
Right.
if they at least have. And so, to me, planning is really all about optionality. It's giving people choices.
I
And
like how you
people
make
tend
up
to,
words.
yeah, oh, yeah, all the
Optionality.
time.
I love it. Well, how do I know this has struck some chords, because it is with me, but I know there's some people out there who are they really need somebody like you in their corner. A lot of people don't have a financial advisor, especially one who thinks retirement income and understands both sides of that mountain. What do you offer people? How do they take that next step with you?
Right. So, you know, you can go out to our website, www.gatecityadvisors.com, and we have, it's called Your Retirement Income Toolkit. And it's a 7 video series where I walk people through. We have an introduction and then walk them through things like what's qualified dividends and capital gains, Social Security, your home equity, you know, human capital. And at the end of it, we offer a free assessment. And what we do is offer at least 3 things that people can take advantage of. One is just helping them with understanding their Social Security. And so it's a report that we
Huge.
provide that allows them to kind of see what might happen depending on how you take your claim. Second thing is what we call a tax map. So I get your tax return and we actually help people map out, hey, here's where you're at, and then have a discussion about, well, what other ways might you be able to take advantage of how you're building your income to improve the return. And then finally, the third thing is, life insurance is one of these areas that for a lot of people feels like a black hole. And often the old saying is everybody's sold insurance. So what we want to do is help people, if they own a policy, really assess, let's look at that policy. Let's find out if it's still working for you. Let's go through. Why did you do it? And then let's look at, well, what are the advantages, and make sure it's still working for people. So that's something people can take advantage of. There's no obligation there. And then if they want to pursue, like, hey, I'd like to engage, then we talk about that at that time.
Yeah, that's so cool. The 7 video series in and of itself would be worth going through, and that just ties back, Sherwood, to the education part of it. Somebody could walk through that, and they're going to be so much more educated to go, okay, now I know some questions to ask. Because if you ask me, I don't even know what to ask, right? But going through a program like that helps. And then the Social Security thing is really cool, because that is, again, if you're getting close to taking Social Security, you need somebody to guide you through that process. All right, so it's and I'm going to grab this and put this in the show notes as well. So it's gatecityadvisors.com.
Correct.
All right,
Advisors with an O.
Okay. And I'm going to grab that, put it in the show notes too. So if you're out doing something and dealing with a client or walking the dog or something, you can go to the show notes, find it. You can go to their website and take that 7 video course, get yourself educated. Or you might be at a point where you're like, I don't have time for that. I need to talk to somebody now. Then book a call with them and just have that discussion, because you're probably not as bad off as you might think or feel. But sure, we could definitely help you understand. And then, as you said, give you some options and help you map out the next few days, few weeks, few years. And how do you take that nest egg you've created and make it last your lifetime and enjoy life with less stress, hopefully. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Amen.
All right. Sherwood, man, thank you for what you do. It's really, really, really important. I hope lots of people take you up on the things that you have available. Thanks for bringing an educational perspective to it, because it's really confusing to people. But thanks for your heart behind it and making it so simple.
Well, thanks for what you do as well. I really appreciate it.
Well, you are welcome, Sherwood. Thanks for listening to Experts Speak. Go out and see Sherwood. I'll capture all that into the show notes, and tune in again next week for another great episode. Take care. God bless.